We have important breaking news out of the Trump administration consistent with what I predicted. I've explained to you for the last several months that until the full team, the full leadership team involving the Second Amendment and the Trump administration is put together, it's not going to be super fast, but things are about to change because the announcements I'm going to give you in 1 second are going to show that their eyes are on the prize and the Second Amendment, the Trump administration is coming to save you. Let's break it down. Hey folks, I'm Mark Smith, host of the 4 Box of Don, a proud American gun owner, constitutional attorney, member of the United States Supreme Court Bar, and I'm proud to say the top voice of the Second Amendment in America. Thank you. Gundies Awards 2025. All right. So a lot has been happening with the Trump administration, the Second Amendment. And again, you have to prepare for war before you actually launch your attacks. There's a lot of preparations going in. There's a lot that has to be done. Again, you do not invade the beaches of Normandy in a day. You have to get your troops lined up and trained and lined up in Great Britain before you can launch, right? Same way you can't just overnight attack the island of Japan. You need to island hop and get ready to go for the big win, right? Well, I view that somewhat analogous to what's going on with the Trump administration as they start turning their sights on the gun control laws of America all across the board. But there was two missing pieces that I kept hammering home on this channel to make you the smartest person in the room so you could really understand in the real world what's going on. I mean, anyone in a fantasy land can just say shall not be infringed and the gun control laws all go away. Unfortunately, that is not the world we live in. We have to fight for every inch in the real world where you have multi-billion-dollar entities and organizations and people that simply don't want us to have guns. And you also have many years of precedents that are going to have to get fixed and addressed like barnacles on the bottom of a ship. With that said, the two critical things that had to occur, as I explained to you before, was the United States Senate had to confirm Attorney Harmeet Dillon to be the head of the Department of Justice's Office of Civil Rights, because once that occurred, that allowed that office to start really functioning again and going on the attack against people that violate our Second Amendment rights and other rights for that matter. And likewise, I said, you cannot have major position changes at the high levels of federal law, including the United States Supreme Court and these courts of appeals, until the Trump administration once and for all has its formal confirmed Solicitor General, which has just occurred with John Sauer. So as we sit here right now, we have John Sauer confirmed as the Solicitor General. We have Harmeet Dillon confirmed as the head of the Office of Civil Rights within the Department of Justice. And I'm happy to report that we're already starting to see movement in various cases. To begin with, in the United States Court of Appeals, that case of Reese, which you may recall was a three-judge panel decision that said that 18, 19, and 20-year-olds have full-blown Second Amendment rights. They're full-blown adults. They cannot be treated as something other than full-blown Americans. And as a consequence, that federal law that says that 18, 19, and 20-year-olds may not acquire handguns from federal firearms licensees from FFLs, that law was deemed and found to be unconstitutional under the Second Amendment by the Fifth Circuit. The question has been is whether or not the Trump administration is going to seek cert in the Reese case to the United States Supreme Court, and by extension, upon granting cert, will they then flip their sides and argue that although they want the Supreme Court to decide the Reese case, they want the Supreme Court to affirm the Fifth Circuit and conclude that indeed 18, 19, and 20-year-olds are full-blown adults, which is clearly the right answer no matter how you look at the question. So I say that with that little context and that little background to make you the smartest person in the room. Just now, John Sauer has just asked the United States Supreme Court itself. He asked the U.S. Supreme Court for time because he specifically says that he's the new Solicitor General and wants to look at this case very, very carefully. And thus he is asking for a little bit more time to make that decision, which is quite significant because historically, in a case dealing with the federal gun control law, whether it be a Democrat in office like a Joe Biden, a Merrick Garland, who would rush to the Supreme Court to try to get that law found to be constitutional, or if it was a prior Republican White House, a George H.W. Bush, who was the head of the director of the CIA, by the way, or a George W. Bush, It was a prior Republican presidency. They, in the name of law and order, would also rush to the Supreme Court trying to get a ruling that that federal gun control law was, yes, indeed, constitutional. So the fact that the Trump administration is saying, pause, we need to look at this because we might not even seek cert. In Reese, we may be perfectly fine with that decision, or alternatively, we may seek cert and flip our position, is quite significant. This is specifically what John Sauer, the new Solicitor General, had to say. Pursuant to Rules 13.5 and 30.2 of the Rules of the Supreme Court of the United States, the Solicitor General, on behalf of the ATF, Daniel Driscoll, Acting Director of the ATF, and Pam Bondi, Attorney General, respectfully request a 30-day extension of time to and including May 30th, 2025, with which to file a petition for a writ of certiorari to review the judgment of the United States Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit of this case. He then goes on to say that the Solicitor General, that would be him, the Solicitor General has not yet determined whether to file a petition for cert in this case. The additional time sought in this application is needed to continue consultation within the government and to assess the legal and practical impact of the Court of Appeals ruling. Additional time is also needed if the petition is authorized to permit its preparation and its printing. Respectfully submitted, John Sauer, Solicitor General. That's great stuff, folks, because again, historically, the knee-jerk reaction would be to, without thinking for an instant, seek cert and ask for the U.S. Supreme Court ruling that a federal gun control law was indeed constitutional. And that's not what's happening here. Now, again, if the Trump administration starts screwing stuff up and taking the wrong positions in major cases, I will be the first person that flags this. I will flag this before anyone else does and tell you there's a problem here. Okay? Now, there's a lot of work to be done. We're not where we need to be, but we're not even 100 days into this administration, and we have deep state courts are getting in the way of the Trump administration on purpose, as I see it, and distracting their lawyers, including Attorney General Pam Bondi, from what they should be doing, which is advancing the Trump agenda. But they are doing so, but they're getting bogged down because these crazy judges, in my opinion, across this country are slowing down the administration in terms of deporting illegal aliens and terrorists and the like. And that is not a bug. That is a feature of what these judges are doing. And the same judges that are basically bogging down the Trump administration are the exact same judges who would be upholding gun control laws in the name of left-wing America. Now, beyond that, I want to give you great news about something that Harmeet Dillon, who has now just been confirmed as the head of the Office of Civil Rights for the Department of Justice. Harmeet is a powerful lawyer, a great supporter of the Second Amendment and all of our civil rights, and she's going to do great in that position. But she has already responded to public inquiries about what's going on with some of these cases, and specifically what's going on with some of these states, these specific states that refuse to respect the Second Amendment and NYSERPA versus Bruin. And she's actually made a public statement, and I want to give you that public statement right here. Here's what Harmeet Dillon had to say on X. I attended my second meeting of the Second Amendment Task Force at the Department of Justice. It's a working group of highly motivated attorneys from different federal law enforcement agencies, including several within the Department of Justice. She goes on to say the jurisdictions that openly flout Supreme Court precedent and the Constitution with respect to our right to bear arms, watch out. You won't get away with it. Now, that is not a statement from some YouTube influencer with great looking hair. No, that is a statement from the head of the Office of Civil Rights, responsible for enforcing civil rights all across this great country. That's the head of the Office of Civil Rights for the United States Department of Justice. And the fact that she has gone out and made a public statement about not just the Second Amendment, not just enforcing the Second Amendment, but enforcing it against whom? Specifically against states that refuse to follow the Second Amendment, refuse to follow NYSERPA versus Bruin and Supreme Court and precedent is quite significant. We have never seen anything like that in prior administrations, which goes back to my basic foundational principle that I know a lot of you disagree with, but I'm ultimately right, is that the Trump administration, both the first one and in particular this one, is going to be the best administration we've ever seen for the Second Amendment, because there have been prior administrations going back, 1,000 years, if you will, that have been good on guns, but they never had to face multi-billion-dollar organizations and international organizations and all sorts of pressures to shut down the American gun industry and our right to keep and bear arms, like the Trump administration has had to face. The anti-American forces are so much wealthier and stronger, and they're here in America in a way they never were before. So I'm sure Madison and Jefferson and Washington were all good on the Second Amendment, but the reality was they didn't really need to be, because there was no major push for gun control laws back in the day, unlike today. And that's why I put Donald Trump at the top of the totem pole when it comes to defending our Second Amendment rights, because he's fighting World War II, if you will, for our Second Amendment rights. And a lot of other presidents did not even have to think about it, because there was no push for this kind of insane gun control laws that we are seeing today in the 21st century. All right, folks. So again, I got my fingers crossed. And again, if there are mistakes made, if the Trump administration is doing something wrong, you need to flag it and let everyone in the Second Amendment community do it. They need to be told about this, because I suspect a lot about what's going on is a lot of the deep state career lawyers at the Department of Justice are just on autopilot. They might not even be anti-Trump. They're just kind of doing what they've always done, filing the briefs that they've always filed, which historically has always been pro-gun control and anti-Second Amendment. So again, if you see stuff like this, you got to let everybody know. It's your job in the Second Amendment community to observe and report and let everyone know about it. That's mission critical, because if the Trump people are not aware of the problem, they cannot fix it, because you cannot solve a problem if you don't first and foremost know about it and diagnose it. So there you have it, folks. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. Make sure you follow me on X at @4boxofdiner. Don't forget to subscribe to both YouTube and Rumble. I look forward to talking to you really, really soon here at the 4 Boxes Diner.
Orders up. Table 2A.